They laughed at him. Not quietly. Not politely. Soldiers smirked. Officers shook their heads. Some even called it suicide. A lightly armored jeep. Thin steel. Barely enough protection from a rifle round. And yet he named it Sherman. In a war dominated by massive tanks, heavy artillery, and endless columns of infantry, this man believed a small jeep could do what battalions could not: break through enemy lines, disappear into hostile territory, and return alive. This is the story of the man they mocked, until he drove 100 miles past German lines and rewrote the rules of modern warfare forever. By 1944, World War II in Europe had become a contest of giants. Massive armored divisions clashed across fields and villages. Tanks roared. Bombers darkened the sky. Entire cities turned to rubble in hours. Survival depended on armor, firepower, and numbers. The U.S. Army believed in overwhelming force, slow methodical advances, secure supply lines, air superiority. Everything calculated. There was no place in this war for reckless speed, and definitely no place for a lone jeep. His name wasn't famous yet. No medals, no headlines. Just a reconnaissance officer with an unusual belief. Speed was armor. He had watched tanks get stuck, convoys ambushed, infantry pinned down by enemy fire. But when a vehicle moved fast enough, it confused the enemy. It vanished before a response could form. So he took a standard reconnaissance jeep, reinforced it slightly, mounted a machine gun, strapped fuel cans everywhere, and named it Sherman. That name alone made people laugh. The Sherman tank was iconic. Thick armor, a 75mm gun, cruise of 5. His jeep had none of that. One well-placed bullet could end it. One mine would erase it. Other soldiers told him the truth straight to his face. You won't last 5 minutes. That thing's a coffin. You'll get us killed. But he wasn't planning to fight tanks. He was planning to outrun the war itself. The Allied advance had stalled. German lines were unclear. Enemy units were moving fast, retreating, then striking from nowhere. Command needed intelligence. Roads, bridges, supply dumps, unit movements. But patrols sent in groups were detected. Aircraft couldn't see everything through forests and villages. Then the jeep officer spoke up. I can do it alone. Silence filled the room. Then laughter, until command realized something terrifying. He might actually succeed. At dawn, he crossed the Allied forward line. No escort. No backup. No radio support beyond emergency signals. The jeep bounced along dirt roads, fields, broken villages. Every mile forward meant fewer chances of rescue. He passed burned-out tanks. Abandoned German gear. Signs of sudden retreats. Then, silence. He was officially behind enemy lines. German soldiers expected tanks. They expected convoys. They expected noise. They did not expect a jeep appearing at full speed, then vanishing. At road crossings, he slowed just enough to listen, then accelerated away. At villages, he drove straight through, machine gun visible, acting like the lead element of a much larger force. The Germans hesitated. That hesitation saved his life again and again. At one checkpoint, German troops waved him down. Instead of stopping, he accelerated. Firing a short burst into the air, he shouted commands in broken German, gesturing wildly as if tanks were seconds behind him. The Germans scattered. They believed a spearhead had arrived. In reality, it was one man and a jeep. As night fell, the danger doubled. No headlights, no maps accurate enough. Enemy patrols everywhere. He hid the jeep under trees, listening to German trucks pass within meters. Every sound meant death. But by dawn, he was still alive and still driving deeper. The miles added up. 20, 40, 70. He crossed bridges marked for demolition, drove through towns still flying Nazi flags, dodged columns of German armor retreating west. At times he was closer to Berlin than to Allied lines. And still, Sherman kept moving. By the time fuel ran low, he had memorized everything. Unit movements, supply routes, weak bridges, defensive gaps. He turned back. That return trip was worse. The enemy was alert now, but speed once again saved him. When he finally crossed back into Allied territory, sentries raised their rifles. They thought he was German. When they recognized him, silence fell. The jeep was riddled with holes. The driver exhausted, but alive. He had gone 100 miles past German lines and come back. The laughter stopped. Officers listened. Maps were redrawn. Plans changed overnight. Entire divisions moved through gaps he discovered. German defenses collapsed faster than expected. One jeep had done what bombers and tanks could not. This wasn't just bravery. It was a new way of thinking. Mobility over mass, speed over armor, intelligence over firepower. Modern reconnaissance doctrine was born in moments like this. The jeep wasn't named Sherman as a joke. It was named after the idea that victory isn't about size. It's about momentum and courage. German field reports began contradicting each other. One unit claimed American armor had already passed them. Another insisted enemy forces were nowhere nearby. Radio chatter turned chaotic. How could an entire armored spearhead appear, then vanish? The truth was simple but impossible to believe. A single jeep was moving faster than their assumptions. German commanders hesitated to redeploy troops, fearing traps. That hesitation fractured their defensive cohesion. And in war, hesitation kills. This wasn't just physical movement. It was psychological warfare. German soldiers expected order, predictability, and patterns. The jeep broke all three. When it appeared, it acted bold. When challenged, it disappeared. When chased, it outran danger. The enemy began reacting to shadows, and while they chased ghosts, real Allied forces advanced unhindered. German doctrine emphasized strong points and layered defense, but those doctrines assumed the enemy would move logically. The jeep didn't. It crossed where no attack was expected. It moved at times considered impossible. It ignored safe and unsafe routes. Rules written for tanks meant nothing against speed. There were close calls. Once, headlights suddenly flared ahead, German trucks blocking the road. No time to turn back. He floored the accelerator, swerved into a ditch, bullets snapping past his head as the jeep bounced violently through the dark. Another time, a German patrol walked directly toward the hidden vehicle. Hand on pistol, breath held. Seconds stretched into eternity. They passed without seeing him. War is decided by moments like these. Fear never left him, but fear sharpened his instincts. Every sound mattered. Every decision counted. He wasn't fearless. He was focused. And focus kept him alive. Back in Allied command tents, maps spread across tables. As he spoke, officers leaned in. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't dramatize. He simply described what he saw. And the room understood the gravity. German defenses were thinner than believed. Their retreat was disorganized. Their supply lines exposed. This wasn't just intelligence. It was opportunity. Within days, Allied maneuvers changed. Entire units moved through corridors once thought impassable. German positions collapsed faster than predicted. Historians would later struggle to explain the sudden momentum shift. Few would realize how much of it began with one jeep. Because he had been there. Because his vehicle still bore bullet scars. Because no one risks that much for a lie. The jeep itself became evidence. The nickname Sherman stuck, but not as mockery. It became a symbol of bold reconnaissance, of daring initiative, of how unconventional thinking could outperform brute force. Other recon units began copying the idea. Lighter, faster, more aggressive. Doctrine quietly evolved. He didn't become a movie star. No parades followed. No statues were built. But battles were won faster. Lives were saved. The war moved forward. That is how real impact often looks. Technology matters. Numbers matter. But mindset matters more. The courage to act when others doubt. The creativity to break rules. The discipline to survive chaos. That's what wins wars and lives. The Germans were no longer confused. They were angry. Reports of a fast-moving American vehicle operating deep behind the lines had reached higher command. Orders were issued quietly but urgently. Roadblocks, patrols, search teams. They didn't know who he was, but they wanted him stopped. Every road now carried risk. Checkpoints appeared where none had been hours before. Soldiers were alert, weapons loaded, nerves tight. The jeep could no longer rely on surprise alone. Now it relied on timing. He studied patrol patterns, waited for gaps, moved only when the odds favored motion. Speed was still his shield, but patience became his armor. At one intersection, instinct screamed stop. Minutes later, German half-tracks rolled through, headlights cutting the darkness. Had he gone forward, the story would have ended there. War punishes impatience. Survival rewards restraint. Sleep came in fragments. 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. The mind stayed awake even when the body failed. Every shadow looked like a helmet. Every sound like boots. Behind enemy lines, rest was a luxury. The jeep wasn't just a vehicle anymore. It was a partner. Its engine note told him danger. Its